Hello, all. I'm here again to talk more about how to best maintain your player coach interaction. Um, for the coaches out there, we talked about Leary's Rose last time and how to invoke some specific reactions based on your actions. This time we will be looking at the compass model to maintain that relationship. There are 7 overall themes. I am going to discuss in depth 4 of those themes. The other 3 are important, but not as important as those 4. So I'll go through I'll name all 7 of them here, and then I'll go into the ones that I think are most important to note. So compass is a acronym, and it actually is the beginning letters of all of the 7 themes. So the C stands for conflict management, O for openness, M for motivation, P for positivity, A for advice. The first S is support, and the second S is social networks. I will not be covering social networks, motivation, and positivity. While motivation is very key, a lot of the things that would be helpful to increase motivation are talked about in the other ones. So I encourage you to go look at the model itself, but it's not as necessary here. So going into conflict management here, there's a couple of different strategies that we should talk about. The first one being a proactive strategy. In doing this, you are able to clarify your expectations and therefore try to avoid any conflicts. That being said, conflicts will still arise, and so there is a reactive strategy as well. But the proactive strategy is there to preemptively manage that conflict so that the conflict isn't as great as it could be. And you just want to make sure you really get out there. One of those strategies is to really clarify your expectations. This will go a long way in the conflict, as you can go back and list, okay, here's what we went over, here's the expectations that I set out. Now, if a conflict still arises, there's the reactive strategies. There are many others, but really, you want to cooperate during a discussion of the disagreement or the conflict. You don't want to make it a very direct and very confrontational thing. So, you really want to be talking with the player, not necessarily just like punishing them straight away. So that concludes conflict management there. A lot of that is very important, and knowing how to deal with that is very important. So we're going to move on to openness, which should help some of that conflict management as well. All of these themes tie to each other and will really help maximize that player-coach relationship. So moving on to openness, you want to be able to talk about non-sports things with the athletes. This helps make yourself more relatable. It helps make yourself seem human. Most teams work on a very authoritarian manner where the coach is leader of all, and that is how it should be. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't be relatable, be able to have your players see that, hey, this person is something that we can really relate to, get behind. We know their values. Talk about anything. Very important. So there are 3 categories here. Non-sport communication is a major one. Talk about anything is another major one. Make it clear that the athlete can come to you. that they can confide in you. You're another person that if they have issues that they can really come and discuss them with you, and have another person as an open mind. The last one is other awareness, just attempting in a general manner to completely understand, okay, this is the situation that the athlete is going through, this is the situation that I am in, and they may not see that. Just being able to step outside of yourself and see the bigger picture before going into potentially a conflict or something like that. So, the third theme that I'm going to talk about here is advice. So you want to make sure that you're communicating within the sport. There's three main categories here. You got sport communication, constructive feedback, and reward feedback. So there are some things you want to be able to improve your players, but you want to make sure that that's getting done in an effective manner. That's where sport communication and constructive feedback really come in. Sport communication, you're discussing issues related to that sport. So whether that be, there was a mess up during practice or a game, you want to be able to communicate that effectively, and to make sure that that is a conversation and that it's produced in a way that is effective for the athletes. Which brings into constructive feedback here. So, you are the tool, you are the one that should be giving the skills and the means to the athletes here. So, with constructive feedback, you're giving opinions and instructions on issues that you are seeing, but rather than just criticizing the performance, you're actually giving them the tools to fix their performance and improve on that. And then, you want to make sure you give constructive feedback, but you also want to make sure you give some reward feedback, or in other words, positive feedback. So when somebody does something right, or, you're working with something and they make the right decision, maybe not make the play, but make the right decision, you're praising that athlete and making sure that they understand, hey, good job. There has been some findings saying that this kind of feedback actually gives the athlete more confidence to do it again, and will eventually improve the athlete's performance to then actively be able to do that. And the last one I wanted to talk about is support. So social networks is very important. You want to make sure that so social networks is just time outside the sport, but I'm not going to go into that one. Support is a little bit different here. So there's three main things underneath this category as well. The biggest one is assurance. So, showing that you're committed to that athlete, showing that you're related, that they can come to you, that you're there to help support them and develop them and push them. And then that gets broken down into sport-specific and personal support. Pretty self-explanatory. Sport-specific is, giving this support to coach and athletes after a poor performance, making sure they get those feedbacks, and making sure that you're giving the tools to succeed. That's part of the motivation. That's part of the motivation thing that I skipped over because, again, most of these overlap. Personal sport is just that outside of the sport. Different teams look different. It's much more important for teams that are that of like high school level, where a lot of different things could be happening, or that you might have more interactions outside of just this practice field or that kind of thing. Yes. So that's the compass model. It's very important for helping maintaining that atmosphere, especially the conflict management part. You'll see that effective conflict management is very influential to keeping team morale up, keeping bouncing back. I was always told it's not about how you get or how hard you get knocked down. It's always about you know what you do to get back up, and that is very important in conflict situations as well. You want to make sure that that is managed smoothly, and so then you can return to that team atmosphere and the singular goal of performance and competing effectively.